guys, what's up Mustangs? Bugatti Chiron back to Forza Motorsport 7 with another investigation, because you see, the Bugatti Chiron is in this game, and I know many hundreds of thousands of people who play this game are very happy to see it in this game. And to a certain extent, I am as well, for the craziness of it. 1,500 horsepower, 1,100 foot-pounds of torque, in a luxury hypercar. That's not what you see every day. But there are plenty of fantastic, relatively luxurious hypercars out there in the game already. So, how does this ludicrous successor to the Veyron fare against its rivals from the Holy Trinity, Pagani, GTA, Spano, and Koenigsegg? And don't forget about the small guys, the Ultima, the cheaper the car that is a 20th of the price of this vehicle, at least, maybe more. So yeah, how will the Chiron fare against this very tough crowd? And we start off with a bit of a different challenge. There are 23 A-class AIs driving around Silverstone, and I have to give them a 10-second head start. And I will try to overtake as many vehicles as possible in the span of one lap of the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit. And this Veneno here, well, it's one of the best handling cars, I would argue, in the world for the speed it has. So it made relatively short work of getting back up to the field. Now it's one thing to get to the back of them, it's another thing to overtake them. And I know you may think, oh, well, it's a hypercar, so it's going to breeze past them in the streets. Not exactly. You see, the Veneno, yes, is very fast and very expensive and very cool looking. However, it's not exactly the fastest vehicle. Sure, it's a lot faster than these A-class cars. But notice how it's not blitzing past them like you might expect. Now, once you get to the corners, you pretty much are dominating everything in this vehicle, except for a few certain vehicles you'll see later on. But you see I'm on the inside, the KTM, I might have nudged him a little wide, I do apologize. I take a dive on the inside of the RS200, and I'm immediately going after its SLS, which I can then dive on the brakes and go after a Lotus. Yeah, it's a fantastic challenge. I highly recommend you just get the AIs, put them in lower cars, and then you basically make your own showcase event by trying to overtake as many as possible in one lap. It's quite entertaining. And it also helped by the fact that they were battling amongst themselves with the AMG trying to go 3 wide, which allowed me to open the door to the Chiron and then go in between the three of them and maintain my position before going after the 2 rally cars. It was mayhem. And then I will use the straight line speed advantage of the Veneno. Not the ultimate straight line speed advantage, but it is certainly a lot quicker. Go diving on the Camaro and on the Lancia Stratos before heading on to its older brother, a very pink Diablo. Yeah, I didn't think that's an interesting color choice and a half. Diving on the GT class here, lots of ground tours with the Bentley. I try to go around the outside of the Bentley on this final corner. It's very close, but I will just about get the position as I cross the line. The next vehicle is determined to reclaim its title by beating the Italians, the McLaren P1. Now, obviously this test may vary slightly based on driver car behavior and their ability to go around the corner and having battles and all that stuff, but that's just how racing goes, because, you know, if you have these hypercars, you probably won't have a track to yourself, so you'll go to a track day, which is why I have this challenge here. So it's an interesting challenge to see how you can overtake people in these vehicles. And the P1 is rather good at this. I don't know what happened, but this is one of my favorite runs I've ever done in a racing game for overtaking challenges. It was beautiful, because this vehicle has a lot of straight line speed. It's very fast, goes 230 miles an hour, so it can quickly catch up to the rest of the pack. And then it can outbrake the pack with the giant wing. I go diving on the German rivals, heading to the Italians, I might do a slight bump, and then I go around the outside of the Italians. This is not a corner where you want to go on the outside of someone. And yet, the McLaren did the unthinkable. I did not think that was going to work. I kind of threw that in there as a possibility, and it did it. That is the level of grip we are talking about for the McLaren P1. That's probably one of my favorite overtakes I have ever done, period, in a racing game. So, yeah, that was impressive. Then we get into a dive on the Subarus. The Subaru actually does hold me up by parking on the apex, but yeah, I got a little bit held up by the Subaru, and once again I came across the Italians, where I went, again, 3 wide. That area really likes going 3 wide. Before going on the outside, and squeezing through the gap that was just about there, and then blitzing everything down the straightaway. And I was making very, very good progress. And there were only 3 cars left to overtake on the field, but I was running out of room. So I pretty much threw everything I had. I ran wide slightly. That's a Formula 1 line, okay? That's a Formula 1 line. And then I took a dive on the Jaguar winner again, another impressive around the outside, before heading up to get the Mustang, which was leading the race. Into the last corner, he covers the inside while I'm right on the bumper. But it is not enough, and the McLaren will overtake everybody. Now the French, not wanting to be left out, just had the Chiron here, and I was nervous because the Bugatti lineup has always been difficult around the corners, weighing well over 2 tons and having lots of power and lots of understeer. However, I was hoping it could get the speed on the straightaways and have good enough speed around the corners to try and overtake everybody before the finish line. And, yeah, you can see the gap they pull compared to the McLaren. The cars, they're similar, very, very similar. And now comes the Bugatti strong suit. 261 miles an hour top speed will catapult the 4,000-pound Beetle to over 185 miles an hour down this back straightaway. But we're not even as close as the Veneno here. The Veneno's already began overtaking vehicles at this point. The Chiron, it's still half a second behind, which may not seem like a lot, but when you're racing, that's a lot of time. And eventually, on the second straightaway, it does manage to catch up to the Forza, which it then breezes by, and immediately catches up to the Ferrari FF, and takes a dive on the inside there, which it does overtake on. But we're halfway through the lap, and we only got 2 vehicles overtaken. And now the long straightaway is coming, and the vehicles are pretty close together, but it's not really capable of a Mercedes SLS AMG is putting a fight up for a Chiron. So, yeah, the SLS held up a Chiron, and that really cost it. So, yes, it flies down the straightaway, but since it lost time when battling those previous vehicles, it couldn't really overtake. We only have 2 more corners left. I get risky and go between the 2 rally cars. I don't know how I made that work. And I do manage to do another around the outside. But we are not close. We are still a fair few vehicles behind. And it all comes down to the wire, but I clip the back of the Aston Martin and it won't be enough. The Veyron does not succeed. Well, the Koenigsegg, the Ultima, and the McLaren will all overtake every single vehicle in the grid, earning them 1st, 2nd, and 3rd place respectively. 4th place, though, will go to the Bugatti Chiron BC, a vehicle that you don't really hear about too much, but is very good, overtaking 22 cars. Now, the way I determined the victor in this challenge would be based on lap time, which you will see next. So, just for reference sake, the next highest placed vehicle will be the LaFerrari in 5th with 22 overtakes as well. Yeah, there were lots of ties in this one, especially in the 21 zone, with vehicles including the Sesto Elemento, the Porsche 918, the Lycan Hypersport, and the GTA Spano. Pretty good showing from those vehicles. The Centenario, one of the more expensive vehicles here, is not very good. It got a measly 18 vehicles overtaken in 13th place, which is one vehicle better than the Chiron, getting 17 overtakes, earning a solid 14th position. And dead last, that will go to the Ferrari F12 TDF. A little surprising considering it's a track car, but yeah, it only managed to overtake half the field, which is not very good considering you're 3 classes higher than the vehicles you are racing against. Now, on to the lap times. And, I would once again go back to the usual Top Gear test track circuits, and it still has some interesting results. Some vehicles you expect to struggle, like the Venom GT, or in this case, the Regera, because, well, there are lots of power, rear-wheel drive, and there's lots of very slow or medium-speed corners on the test track, and, well, rear-wheel drive cars tend not to like that, as you will now see why. As the Regera decides to do a bit of drifting. A very impromptu bit of drifting. Yeah, it was a experience driving the Regera. Yeah, it was very sideways, very frequently. And that's pretty much all it wanted to do. It was either no power or sideways. Lots of sideways. But, yeah, the Regera, as you might expect, would tend to struggle around this circuit. Now, the Zenvo ST1 is in a very similar boat to the Regera, but to a slightly less extreme. It actually has a proper gear ratio setup, and it has a bit less power. But it's still rear-wheel drive, and it's still 1,000 horsepower. And it is 1,000 horsepower that I really like. This car, it's not very fast around the corners, but it's one of my favorite cars on this list, because of the crazy bonkers engineering that's in it. Because when you can't decide whether to use a turbocharger or a supercharger, you say, screw it, why not go with both? And that's very cool. Not many vehicles have actually twin-charged recently. And this vehicle's already done better than in real life because it's not on fire. So, yeah, it's a real handful, but it's also really rewarding if you can manage it around the track. And it certainly keeps you attentive at all times. Now, the Koenigsegg 1-to-1 is always going to be very, very fast around here. Until it crashed, it was ready to do a 6-minute 40 around the Nürburgring. So it's no slouch. It'll go to 170 miles an hour. It has 1,300 horsepower rear-wheel drive. But the most incredible thing is how easy it is to use that 1,300 horsepower. It has incredible levels of grip, incredible levels of acceleration, and I find it rather easy to drive. It's not a terrifying death machine like the Venom, and it's very controllable like the Veneno. So, it's pretty much a perfect mixture, which is why it's pretty much dominant in the lap time industry. It set a world record for the Spa lap, and around Top Gear, it's certainly quick. Very quick. Absurdly quick. Mind-blowingly quick. Now, the victor is no surprise to anyone, with the Koenigsegg 1-to-1 delivering a ridiculously fast 107.7 second lap. That's not very many seconds. That was a ludicrously fast car, beating the second place vehicle, the Centenario, by 2 seconds. That's a lot of seconds right there. Which did a 109.0. The Centenario very much impressed me with that 109. I was not expecting that, but it really did deliver. Now, of the highest, the Holy Trinity, it was very, very close. 6th place going to the LaFerrari, 7th place going to the Porsche, and 8th place going to the McLaren. Each of them separated by about 5/10 of a second, with the LaFerrari doing a 1:10.3, the Porsche doing a 1:10.6, and the McLaren doing a 1:10.8. There's a reason why they're called the Holy Trinity. It's ridiculously close between the three of them. It's fantastic, in fact. Now, one vehicle that did really struggle here was the Venom, in dead last of the 113.5. That is 7 seconds slower than the 1-1. I mean, and you can understand that it's very rudimentary. It's basically a Lotus with 1,200 horsepower in it. Lotuses were not designed for 1,200 horsepower, and yet they made it just about work. But it is a literal point-and-squirt vehicle. Much more of a point-and-squirt vehicle than the 13th place vehicle, the Chiron, which is another pray around the corners and then boot it in a straight line, which did a 112.5, earning itself a 13th position. Now, the points for this section were doubled in order to, I guess, because lap times are the more important thing for these vehicles, because they all go over 200 miles an hour. They're all very, very fast machinery. So, half mile, 0 to 100, whatever it is, aren't really as important because you're never going to reach those. But corner speed and control, I argue, is incredibly important, which is why I have doubled the points for the lap time event. Now, the half-mile drag was always going to favor the four-wheel drive cars. However, this Ferrari F12 TDF in theory should be pretty good, 730 horsepower, but it's not. It can't really handle it. In fact, that would be a common theme. While no, the Sesto Elemental was not designed for a drag strip with only 570 horsepower, it does have four-wheel drive, and it is very light, so it does get propelled forwards very quickly. It just runs out of power. And that's one of the few supercars here to actually struggle with running out of power. Running out of power is not a problem for the 1,000 horsepower Ultimate GTR 1020, which will go over 200 miles an hour in half a mile. Now, yes, it is very dangerous around the corners, but in a straight line, it'll blitz pretty much everything. Once again, victory is to the Koenigsegg 1-1 with a 13.5 half-mile time. That's very impressive. And the Ultima will claim second with a 13.7. Fourth, we'll go to the Chiron. The Chiron does get to use its 1,500 horsepower four-wheel drive setup very well in this one. In this challenge, one of the few vehicles to get over 200 miles an hour in a half a mile. The last vehicle to get into 10th place was the LaFerrari 15 dead, losing out slightly to the McLaren by a 1/10 of a second, but it is faster than his Porsche rival by 2/10 of a second. And the F12, well, it once again struggled, we'll say, at another sad 16th place for the Ferrari with a 16.23 second half mile. That's not very fast. If we compare it to, say, the GTA Spano, which is another relatively forgotten about vehicle and with the same power range and rear-wheel drive, that did it a second faster with a 2 seconds faster with a 14.7. That's a very good showing to get in 6th place, but I don't know what it is. The F12 just doesn't work. I don't know what it is. It just doesn't work very well. I mean, the Veneno, yes, it's four-wheel drive and very aerodynamic, but it struggles in the straight line speed department. and it beats it by half a second. I don't know what's going on with that F12, but it is not even remotely capable of competing with the big dogs. Now the 918 here, in theory, is fantastic. 4-wheel drive, 887 horsepower, and very lightweight. However, going to 150 miles an hour to 0 is a struggle. The braking is fantastic, but the acceleration to 150 is not really there. 0 to 100 is very good, but after that it really does struggle. A vehicle that would most likely not lose enough this acceleration in the 0 to 150 to 0 test is the Venom. Well, yes, it's rear-wheel drive and it takes a long time to get its traction down, but once it does, it shoots off like the space shuttle. And since it's a Lotus Elise chassis, it's pretty light too, and that allows it to get stopped very well. So, yeah, pretty solid entry for the Hennessy Venom. Now the GTA Spinel is what I almost forgot, but I'm glad I didn't, because it's actually quite good at the 0 to 100 to 0, considering it's rear-wheel drive and has less than 800 horsepower. In part due to the largest air dam for a spoiler I've ever seen. It pretty much just swallows up the entire back window. That is certainly quite a wall to stop. Very, very impressive showing. And there's a common theme here, with the Koenigsegg 1-1 claiming victory. There's a common theme going on. I can't quite tell what it is. I think it's the fact that it wins every single time. With a 10-second 0 to 150 to 0. It took less than a quarter of a mile to go from 150 miles an hour to 0. That is ridiculous. And for the Ultima, it took just over half a mile in second place. Third place would go to the Venom, as you would expect, with the Regera coming home in fourth. Again, as you might expect, these are the powerhouses. They are all rear-wheel drive, which is pretty impressive. The next closest four-wheel drive car being the Chiron, down in 5th place with a 12.4. And the Porsche 918, I thought that would do a lot better. It could only manage 12th place with a 14.1. I just don't think it has that mid-range acceleration, you know? I don't think it has it. I mean, the McLaren has a lot of power and rear-wheel drive. And it still managed to do a 13.1, which will put it in 6th place. That's very respectable, actually. To be a second clear of the Porsche. That's quite impressive for a rear-wheel drive car. And another common theme here, the Ferrari F12 TDF coming home in last place again with a 16.06. Again, that's 6 seconds slower than the 1-1. I don't know. I don't know what Ferrari was thinking, but they made an utter piece of garbage. I'm just saying. It really did not like being around these guys at all. Yeah, the F12 struggled immensely. Now the victor won't be a surprise to anybody with 375 points. The 1-1 is the ultimate hypercar. It just is. No matter what anyone else says, it is the fastest in a straight line. Except for the Agera RS, but that's not in the game. It's as fast, if not faster, on the corners. Its traction is impeccable. Its handling is perfect. It is the ultimate vehicle. And then we have the polar opposite side of the spectrum in second, with 232 points. The Ultima GTR 1020 is very scary, very fast, and will pretty much give you a white-knuckle death grip for the remainder of your life when you drive it. But it is surprisingly good. It's not quite as accessible as the Koenigsegg, but it's still very good. However, the biggest surprise for me was the GTA Spano in 4th with 260 points. It was you don't really hear much about the Spano. It's got less than 800 horsepower, it's rear-wheel drive, and looks rather hideous. However, it's very, very good. It's not the best in any category, but consistency can be key. And that vehicle is very consistent and consistently good, which is how it managed to get a solid 4th position. Now, a vehicle I hoped to do better, because it is one of my personal favorites on this list, the Sesto Elemento, could only muster 12th. Now, a vehicle I hoped to do very good, but sadly was not to be, was the Sesto Elemento, earning a solid 12th position with 189 points. Now, that is a tie with the Zenvo ST1. The way I sorted out ties is whichever vehicle had the faster lap time would get the point. And the Sesto was fractionally faster, about 0.5 of a second. So it will get that point. I wanted to do better. I love it. It's such a crazy, incredible feat of engineering. Just didn't quite have the pace. To be fair, it is 7 years old. So, good showing based on that. But the big question is, how does the Chiron fit in all of this? And it's not good. It's not good at all. It gets 212 points, which will put it in 11th place. A same point total as the Porsche 918, but since the 918 got a faster lap time, it will keep its 10th place position. The Chiron, it tries to be good, it's just not good enough. Despite the fact that it has 1,500 horsepower, its complete lack of handling in the overtaking challenge and the lap time challenge offset its 4th and 5th place positions for the acceleration and braking tests. It's just not good enough. Even in its ideal scenario, the half-a-mile drag race, it can only muster 4th. It got beaten by rear-wheel drive cars with less power. It just doesn't use its power efficiently enough. And yeah, I'm sorry, but that Chiron, it's not good. It's not a good vehicle. It gets beaten by the Zenvo, the Koenigsegg, the LaFerrari, the Lycan. It beats by pretty much every vehicle on this list. And it just can't compete. So, is it a crazy piece of engineering? Yes. Is it stunning to look at? Somewhat. Is it ludicrously powerful and fast? Absolutely. But is it the best hypercar? No. Not by a long shot.